For the artists, for the passionate. Welcome to the Adventures Elsewhere podcast. Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Adventures Elsewhere podcast. Or welcome, if it's your first time. I am your host, Jay Black, and today I'm here to talk about 2026. And I'm talking about the novelettes I want to write in 2026. And this is partly because I have noticed mathematically I'm this level of dork. If you're new here, enjoy. I've noticed that I tend to write 6 novelettes a year. That is the sort of pace that I go at. Could I write many more than that if I mainlined them? Yes, absolutely, but that's not the point, that's not what I do. And I have a whole list of novelette ideas in various stages of complexity, in various stages of how firm those concepts are. I have a ton. And I thought for 2026, it might be a nice idea to have somewhat of a hit list this time. See how that works for me. It's just a little experiment, much as anything. And to sort of make sure that I do switch it up, because that is part of the point of me writing novelettes. I thought this was worth touching on in this episode. Is that novelettes do help me to draft my main projects faster. I've talked about this a few times on the podcast, that I like to take one day on and one day off on any given project. You know, I'll write my novel project, then I'll take a day off, and then I'll write it again. And I might be editing on the off days, that's something I've done many a time. Or, as is usually the case, I'll be drafting a novelette. So I'll draft a novel on one day, Day 2 novelette, Day 1 novel, and for whatever reason, this just works. I progress faster on both projects doing it this way, rather than mainlining one or the other. Also with novelettes, I like to keep it fresh. I like to write something that's a bit different from my novels, for one, but also stuff that's just not thriller. Stuff that is in any way sort of different, so I don't just get stuck in the rut of doing everything the same way every time, of approaching everything the same way, just doing the same thing over and over and over, because that's not fun, for one, and I also don't think that's good as a writer, to just do the same thing over and over and over and over and over. Part of the point is creativity. If you're doing the same thing over and over, that's not being appropriately creative, in my book. Pun intended, I guess. Also, on top of that, it scratches a bit of the short fiction urge for me. I started out in microfiction and flash fiction, so having shorter projects that I can do constantly, I get a lot out of that. I get a lot of enjoyment out of that, and I don't feel sad that I miss out on that. I do write shorts on the side as well, like short stories and microfiction I do still write, and I have been making more time for that, because doing this has helped me see how I can make time for those as well, so I get to flex all the writer muscles, and I think that's great. And also, it's just really fun. I really like novelettes as a length. I think they're great for experimentation, I think they're great for something long but not too long. I just really enjoy them as a length. And I'd be remiss to mention my novelettes in 2026 without mentioning the worst kept contract secret I've ever had, and that is City of Tiny Lights. I have signed a contract. This will be coming in 2026 on June 21st. It's a thriller with a little tiny drip of blood magic. It's in first person single. I'm really excited for this. It's got no relation to the Determined Ones. This was a concept I had in my head since I was 18, so you know, a while. A good long while. It's a really old concept that I only got around to drafting in 2025 and immediately found a home for it not but a few months after finishing it. I'm really excited. I'm actually glad I waited to write this one because it's executed so much better than I thought it would ever be when I first concepted it. I'm really, really happy with this one. I'm very excited. Let's talk about some novelettes that I want to write in 2026. I have 6 lined up, as the maths has seemed to dictate that I tend to do 6. I might do more, I might do fewer. I might not even do all of these, because when it comes to writing novelettes, it is kind of what I feel like in the moment. But these are the ones that I've been excited about for a long time. So these are ones, effectively, that are the most likely to get written, and you can keep your eye out for in my writing updates. So this isn't really in any particular order. The first one I want to talk about is the Rainswept Marketplace, and this is the most vague of any concept that I have on here, but it's also the one I'm probably most excited about. This is a litfic. If you've been around here at all, you know I love litfic. I absolutely love it. And the whole idea is centered around rain, and the rain, and actually rain is great. And I love rain. It's raining outside and I'm really happy about it. I've gushed about this many a time, so I'll try and keep it brief. But I really do like the rain. I like the feeling on my skin, and people say, oh, rain's dreary and it's grey, but I like grey. I like how the light looks in the rain. I like how raindrops look on window panes, on leaves, I like how things look in the rain. I think the feeling of rain on their skin is something quite special, actually. And I wanted to write something around how special that can be, but also to tally that somewhat with what you'd expect in a story where it's raining all the time, that, you know, there's grief and there's loss and just life and all of that together. And that's kind of as far as it goes. In terms of how I actually want to write this in terms of full house tricks, I have gone back and forth on this and I do not know. I'm thinking dual POV, and that's about as much as I can say I'm at all settled on. It could work in first, it could work in third, I really don't know. It could work really well in past tense, and it could work nicely in present. I just don't know. We'll get there when we get there, especially when it comes to dual versus single POV. I'll probably only decide that when the moment comes to switch POV. Next up on the list, that's in no particular order, it's fun having an unscripted show, is Alone on This Night. This is a working title that might stay. It's half a Johnny Hartman lyric, if it sounds familiar. This is a noir that I concepted basically as soon as I finished drafting Charcoal Rain, because I loved writing and editing Charcoal Rain so much. I had so much fun with it, and I thought, damn, I need to do so much more noir. It's so much fun. This one, again, is in first person present because that just works well for Thriller's Sad Cousin, and I'm 90% sure that this is going to be single POV because of the sort of story that it is. And this one is set a bit later than Charcoal Rain. Charcoal Rain was set in the 20s. Actually, I think I hadn't fully... Charcoal Rain is set in the 1920s. Alone on This Night, I'm sort of not sure whether I want to set this earlier in the 1910s, so sort of still during the Great War, or after the Second World War. I haven't quite decided where I want it yet, but I want the shadow of the World War to be even heavier this time, because I liked playing with that. And the idea that is that it's this soldier who has come back from the war early, perhaps slightly early, more than early, because he has been injured such that he can no longer fight. And he returns to find that his wife has left him for another man, and basically his entire world has been flipped upside down in pretty much every conceivable way. So, you know, nice happy story. The sort of thing that I just really like. It's somewhat more of a classic noir this time. It's just stuff that I love, that I really want to write. I loved writing Charcoal Rain. I'm really excited for this. It's kind of just that simple. Next one I want to talk about will surprise you. That's my clickbait for today. If you have been around really any of my social media, the podcast, the sister show, especially the sort of announcement of the sister show, there's only so much I can control my face in certain moments. It's very funny watching it back. You know how I feel about romantasy. You know that I despise it. And I swear to God, if it is still the genre in 2026, I am going to gouge my spleen out and eat it raw, I swear to God. But I want to write that because the thing is, there are tropes I want to play with. And I know, I'm really struggling to keep a straight face here, if you couldn't tell. But there are a few things that I want to play for, all sort of together. And more than anything, I'm halfway through this story. I have been halfway through Candidate 66 for years. I just put it down, I got stuck and put it down, and just never picked it back up. I have contemplated picking it back up a number of times, and I've somewhat vowed that 2026 is going to be the year I actually bloody get on with it, because it's annoying me having it hanging over my head as much as anything. I just want it out of my head. I want to say, Candidate 66 is done. I want to be able to say that. Like I said, I'm halfway through this. I'm about 10k in. It's a romantasy question mark. And the reason I question mark that is because it is out and out a fantasy project. There's no doubt about that. And there's a very strong romance element to it. But firstly, is romantasy a real word? I say no. But also, there's a whole lot more going on. There's a lot of politicking going on. Surprise, it's me. So I don't really know quite what subgenre to label it as. You could make the case for it being romantasy. You could make the case for it being epic fantasy. You could make the case for it being high fantasy. That would be more of a stretch, but you could. Assuming I understand what high fantasy is, which is very questionable. You could also make the case for it being a political fantasy, or a low fantasy. I don't think I understand what low fantasy is, don't shoot me. So yeah, I don't quite know what to call it, but I'm calling it romantasy because I think it's funny. I think it's very funny for me to say I'm writing romantasy. So this is written in third past and in single POV, because the main character is very much the main character. That's kind of the entire point. Third past, it's fantasy. And I wanted it to be somewhat more traditional, but I've always loved Candidate 66 because it's designed to be uncomfortable. That's kind of the entire point of it, is it's uncomfortable. It takes a whole lot of things. Yeah, and you know, it's really funny actually thinking back on it, and genuinely just funny. Not funny as in, oh, interesting funny, as in, I think it's hilarious actually, that I conceptualised and started writing this before I really knew anything about romantasy. Obviously how long ago it was, I guess. But romantasy wasn't really even a term back then. You know, romantic fantasy was starting to pick up in popularity, and there are a few tropes that seem to be common and a few things. And it's really, really, really funny to think that the story I wrote is so much of a, hey, fuck you, to all of those things, and it was completely unintentional at the time. Like, hey, you're aware that this is weird and problematic, right? Oh, you are, but you're just making it sexual anyway. Okay. Because the whole idea with Candidate 66 is that you get the sort of standard fantasy thing of, oh, it's the farm boy protagonist and it's king and commoner, because why not, basically. And I also really wanted to play with the arranged marriage trope. Is this somewhat of a heritage thing for me that I've just sort of been curious about for years, perhaps? But yeah, the arranged marriage trope has always been of an amount of interest to me. I've always wanted to play with that in some kind of a sense, and Candidate 66 became the context for that. It became the place where I thought, actually, this would be a good place to play with it. So I set that up, and I set it up to be uncomfortable as possible, because it's so overtly political for the one part, and it's between someone who's incredibly privileged and incredibly oppressed, but both of them face some nastiness from the main monarchy, I guess. I don't know if you can tell I'm trying to skirt around spoilers. I'm partly trying to remember what the heck is going on and partly trying to skirt around spoilers for what it's worth. But, you know, the farm boy kid is... I think he was originally 16. I think I aged him up to be 18. And the king is in his late 30s. Yeah, and that's a very, very deliberate decision because it's so uncomfortable to think about that with two human main characters. And the reason I say that, and it's hilarious how this wasn't deliberate at the time. I just wanted to play with arranged marriage and make it as uncomfortable as possible and as political as possible, because then it would be more interesting and more fun to play with. But given that so much romantasy now is between, you know, really young women who are like 17, 18, 19, and immortal beings who've been around for 2,000 years, that's uncomfortable. I'm sorry, it is. And, you know, I'm not the first person to say this by any means. It is really uncomfortable and creepy and weird and gross, actually. So I'm going to ground that much more, and we're just going to go there, actually. And that's kind of the tip of the iceberg with all of that in Candidate 66. And it is a main reason why I want to finish that, is to play with all of these things. And it'd just be so uncomfortable. I like writing things that are uncomfortable. I mean, Miss Nakagami has plenty of that in it, let alone any of my other stories. Perhaps with the exception of Count the Stars, though Count the Stars does have its moment or two. But that's quite enough about that. We're only halfway, oh boy. So it's time to talk about another project I've had over my head for a very long time, a much longer time, somehow. This is Bloodsport. I've talked about Bloodsport again a lot, so I'm not gonna get into this one too much. It's a slasher, it's the reinvention of my first ever project, and it's definitely at this point going to be in first person single because dual POV is what ruined it in the first place. This is partly an I want to get it out of my head thing, and partly I actually just really want to write this. I think it's going to be fun. It was fun the first time, even when it was, you know, not great and then completely destroyed in edits. I think it's just going to be really fun, and I want to write this story. Slasher, I just don't know where to class as horror, and narratively, this project is much closer to thriller, but I have a feeling that writing my first horror will sort of unlock the floodgates for more horror and more stuff that's closer to horror, like Bloodsport, in the same way that Charcoal Rain did for Alone on This Night. It's just opened up all this noir as a possibility to me. And yeah, I think that Bloodsport will be the next step in things that are horror and horror adjacent. Talking of things that are potentially horror adjacent, I don't class this as that. I class this as much more in the quill suit. Heresy. I don't know that that title is going to stay. Probably not. But this is Vampire. And it's first present multi-POV because it is the sequel to The Night Theatre. The Night Theatre was never intended to have a sequel, but I enjoyed it so much and I had enough ideas for a sequel that it's just kind of materialised in my head and I can't make it go away. And yeah, that's the main deal there. Also, The Night Theatre was just so much fun. The ninth was some of the most fun I've ever had drafting anything. It was maniacal. It still is. It's absolutely insane. And I love it. And everything I had in there, all of the sort of world building and character building, I guess I'm not quite ready to let that go yet. I don't do direct sequels. I hate doing direct sequels. So it might be that I write Heresy and leave it at just part 1, and Heresy just sits in a drawer forever. But I do at least want to write it, and just... It's a bit of a see if I can. Can I write a direct sequel, actually? I never used to be able to do it well, but I've improved so much since. Can I? Can I do it? And also, at some point in 2026, I'm probably just going to need to sit down and write and have a project that is just straight up fun, and it's not that serious. It's not particularly serious, it's just fun, it's just a good time. At some point I'm probably going to need that. And that's where this is going to come in, I think. And last, but certainly not least, though it is probably the most tentative on this list, is Secret of the Haunted Books. Sound familiar? The title. It's probably going to change because of that association. If you don't know, you don't know, but if you do, you definitely do. This is way outside my wheelhouse, which is, again, part of the reason I want to write this, because I do have a slasher, a vampire, a noir, and a noir, so need to get some balance in there. But also, I am excited at the idea, increasingly, of writing paranormal romance, because I've read a story by one of my favourite authors who sort of touched on this a bit. I wouldn't call it paranormal romance, but there was a paranormal romance element, and ever since reading that I've thought, oh, I want to do that. So this project has sort of shot up the list of things I want to write pretty significantly since then. This is, I think, going to be in first-person dual POV, because dual POV romance is cool, and also I haven't written much dual POV, so there's that too. And the idea, which you can probably tell from the title, working title, is that this is set in, by and large, in a library, perhaps bookshop, haven't gotten that far. And I think that's the sort of setting that I haven't fully done. I dabbled with a bookshop setting before, but it was in something very short that I ultimately wasn't particularly happy with. I like the idea, so it's kind of putting together a few things that I like in a combination that I think that works as a little playground. Much like Candidate 66 is, actually. So yeah, this is one that I'm sort of tentative. It's very vague as a concept at this stage, if you couldn't tell. And yeah, I'm excited to write that in 2026. 2026 is going to be a bit of a wild year for my writing anyway, because, I mean, I'm really hoping it's going to be really funny if this is out in 2026 with some of the things I'm about to say, honestly. I might have to do that just because it's going to be so damn funny. I'm really, really hoping to have the first draft of Beneath the Moon done before the 2026 line is crossed. I really want that done. Ideally, I want that done before December. This tells you when I'm recording this, by the way. But certainly before 2026. I've wanted it done for a while, but I really want it done before then. Which means in 2026, my big drafting job is Amber Shackles. That's Curtis's project. That's part captive thriller, part espionage, quite possibly part something else. I don't know. So there's going to be that, and that's going to be something quite different anyway, but I want variety. Even though it's I want to have 2026 as a year of variety, because since I've started doing novelettes on the side, I've really enjoyed having that variety, and I've really enjoyed doing things that are different, and I want to do more of that. First and foremost, I want more variety, I want more different things. Do more of what I enjoy doing, do more of what I love. learn and grow at the same time. I mean, it's a win all round. There's high potential for this list to be written in a completely and utterly different order to how I've talked about it. The best way to know and to stay updated on my writing is on Twitter. I'm jblack21 on there. I do writing updates just about every day, so you can see basically live what I'm doing, what I'm writing, how it's going, how I'm feeling about it. And I also host the monthly Thrills prompts on there, so jblack21 on there. If you like the podcast and or the sister show, you want to stay as updated as possible, and you like the vibe of me being unscripted and not really knowing what I'm doing at any given moment, Instagram's the place to go. Jade_Black21 on there. I'm also Jade_Black21 on Pinterest, where you get a whole load of art and world building and a whole load of exclusive content as well. And Pinterest is a really cool place to go. I also exist on Blue Sky when I make time for game dev, which is not really enough. I'm jblack21 on there. Links to all of that in the description. In the description you'll also find my published work, links to all of those, which as of recording this is my debut novel Mr. Nekagami and my 2 novelettes, Count the Stars and Charcoal Rain. So you can see what my novelettes look like if that interests you. There's a good chance Black Executioner is on pre-order when this goes up, so there'll be a link in the description to that. Highly recommend you check that out, but of course. For what it's worth, Mr. Nekagami is a political thriller, Black Executioner is more of a classic straight thriller, Count the Stars is a slice of life story, and Charcoal Rain is a noir. And if you are published, or well on the way, please do get in touch. My email is on screen. I'd love to interview you. I'd love to be part of your journey. Indie and self-pub, you are the people I want to hear from. It doesn't matter what you're publishing, novel, novelettes, anthology, poetry, whatever you got, bring it in, let's see what we can do. That said, from now on I am prioritising indie darklit because there are so few spaces for indie darklit, and I'm trying to be the change I want to see. And no, darklit does not include dark fantasy. But until next time, you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a like, or commenting, or subscribing. It really does help the channel a lot. All music is done by me. Copyright Jade Black 2025.